Hello, I'm Ben Mankiewicz. Welcome back to TCM and our evening of movies centered on objects of desire. Up next, a film we've never shown before on TCM, although it's been considered a classic since it came to theaters 44 years ago. From 1981, directed by Steven Spielberg, Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is the movie that introduced audiences to Indiana Jones, the adventurous archaeologist who travels around the world searching for precious artifacts to preserve and study them and keep them out of the hands of nefarious characters. Raiders of the Lost Ark is set in 1936 with Ford leading the cast. Ford played Dr. Jones in 5 movies, concluding with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in 2023. Indy's task here is to track down the long-lost Ark of the Covenant somewhere in the Egyptian desert before the Nazis can find it and exploit its legendary powers. Raiders of the Lost Ark was originally conceived by George Lucas in the early 1970s, around the time he was finishing work on his 1971 debut feature, THX 1138. Lucas imagined Raiders as a throwback to the action-packed serials of the 1940s that he grew up watching. However, at the time, Lucas, a fountain of ideas, was toying with another project too. One movie was a space adventure, Lucas said. The other was an adventure of an archaeologist looking for supernatural artifacts. I landed on the space thing. All right, so let's be clear. George Lucas had 2 ideas at the time. One, the space thing became Star Wars, and the archaeologist thing turned into Raiders of the Lost Ark. Man. When Lucas decided to make Star Wars, he turned Raiders over to Steven Spielberg. Clearly the perfect choice. Spielberg said the idea reminded him of all those films I used to see when I was 8 or 9 years old, revivals of all the black and white Republic serials. Suddenly, I had the chance to make a serial in widescreen and Technicolor. What Steven Spielberg ultimately made transcended nearly every action-packed adventure that came before. Raiders of the Lost Ark went on to become the biggest box office hit of the year, earning 9 Oscar nominations, winning 5. But Raiders' success isn't measured that way. It's measured by being the greatest adventure movie ever made. Period. Probably a period. From 1981, with a screenplay by Lawrence Kasdan, a triumphant score by John Williams, and a cast that includes Karen Allen, John Rhys Davis, Paul Freeman, and the great Denham Elliott. This is the TCM premiere of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark became an instant classic when it premiered in the summer of 1981, setting a new standard for all adventure films that followed. It also inaugurated a franchise that has gone on to include 4 more Indiana Jones movies, all but one of them directed by Steven Spielberg. The 5th and final installment, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, released in 2023, directed by James Mangold, is vastly underrated, earned nearly $400 million at the box office. It is a fitting wrap-up to the series. Harrison Ford has played Indiana Jones in all 5 films. When he originated the role of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Ford was on an extraordinary hot streak in Hollywood. He had just played Han Solo for the 2nd time in The Empire Strikes Back, and his next 4 films were Blade Runner, Return of the Jedi, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and Witness, which earned Ford an Oscar nomination. For the record, that Harrison Ford streak of never making a bad movie lasted until like 1998, and he is still killing it. If you haven't been watching Ford and Helen Mirren and Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone prequel, 1923, you are missing a sensational Western story. And this year, Ford earned his first Emmy nomination for his work in the totally engaging Apple TV Plus comedy Shrinking. Coming up, Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner star in an Indiana Jones-style adventure released 3 years after Raiders. Romancing the Stone from 1984. It's next on TCM.
Next on TCM, Romancing the Stone, then Jason and the Argonauts, and later, the Maltese Falcon. TCM's the stuff that dreams are made of tonight.